Welcome everyone to our weekly webinar, Solle Changes Lives. I'm Debbie Perez Cockburn. I love being with you every week. I love seeing your faces. I've missed so many of you for a while. I know that things happen. We've had weddings, we've had trips, we've had some people just feel under the weather. And so I've missed you all very, very much. I'm happy to be with you this week. We're going to have a wonderful discussion this week with our president and founder of Solle Naturals. His name is Greg Halliday. He's with us every week. And we're going to talk about an adaptogen called Yerba Mate. And Yerba Mate recently, well, not recently, it's an old story that's been circulating on the internet, but has recently resurfaced and caused a few questions. And so we are going to clear up some of those questions and some of the misconceptions and misinformation that is out there on the web right now about Yerba Mate. And so we want to make sure that you all feel comfortable with Solle Naturals products. And that's what we've asked Greg to talk to us about today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because as usual, we try to have at least one testimonial at each class. And we kind of did our housekeeping before we started recording. And so how to make your soul shine brighter. We will just remind you of a few things at the end that might help you share Solle with a little more ease. And so that's what we do here every week. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go ahead and play this video for you, okay? Say about our topic.
Hey friends, Val asked me to chat a little bit about my experience with Solle herbs and my menstrual cycle, which, man, I have a lot to say about this, but I'll try to be brief. I used to have the typical menstrual cycle that I think a lot of girls my age would complain about having, which is the pain, cramps, headaches, aching, really heavy flows, even irregular flows, etc. I had all of it to the point that when I got into my 20s, it was debilitating. Acupuncture helped when I found acupuncture, but it would only be minimal for the time being, and I would get migraines, etc. When I came to Val and started with Solle herbs, I started with just the Soleflex PI, and it helped the first month. I had less pain, but it was over the course of about, I would say, 6 months to a year, where I slowly started to notice that I didn't have any of the premenstrual symptoms anymore. I would get my period and I would say, oh my God, I didn't even know it was coming, just because I usually had those signs, the pain, the moodiness, etc. And if I forget to keep on my regimen of the adaptable and I'm not taking enough of it, I will notice the moodiness come back. But the Soleflex PI, I take it every day. I take it a couple of days, and then a week before my period's going to start, because I'm super regular now. I have a really easy flow. I don't have any struggles. I don't have any pain. I almost welcome it. I don't have any of those feelings like we do, I think, in our society today, where you hear most women complaining about how awful it is and how terrible it is. That was me for the majority of my life up until now. And this last year has really just changed a lot of it. I do have to say, it makes a huge difference if you also change your diet and stop eating so much sugar. I cut sugar and a lot of like gluten and just processed foods. That made a huge difference as well. So obviously on top of that, you've got to take care of that and stay active. So I'm a huge supporter when it comes to the headaches that you can get with cramps as well, or with your cycle as well. Someone had mentioned at one point a suggestion of taking Vertizymes in one of our sessions, and probiotics to help with the headaches. Sure enough, probiotics and Vertizymes help me. I'll pop a couple of each if I have a bad headache, and then I'll just monitor it, and as the hours go, every couple of hours, if I'm still feeling it, I'll take that plus a couple more PI, and knocks it out. I haven't taken ibuprofen in I don't know how long, so I'm super grateful.
Don't you love that? That is just one of the best testimonials I've heard. I know I have a lot of people, I don't know if you do, that's why I wanted to share that. People, young girls, and perimenopausal women, you know, right before they go through menopause, they have very similar problems, and you would treat them all the same way. And so I really loved that conversation that Allison had with Valerie Bledsoe. And so I really wanted to share that testimonial with you today. All righty, so while we wait for our president to get on with us right now, I wanted to go ahead and introduce the topic today. As I said, it is about yerba mate. Yerba mate is a wonderful, powerful adaptogen that I think is very undervalued and very misunderstood, especially in this hemisphere. I know that yerba mate in the Southern Hemisphere is very popular. It's been used safely for hundreds of years, if not millennia. I love that yerba mate is part of the evergreen family. So it really is like a tree. It's not a plant. But I think most people are very confused about yerba mate because what they know to be called yerba mate is loose leaf tea. And so that's not what we use. So and definitely what we don't do at Solle is char it. In some countries in South America, they char the tea, the leaves, make a tea, and they char the twigs. And so it's almost like roasting a coffee as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't roast anything that I'm going to eat. And so I think that's where people are pretty confused with what mate is. Hi, Greg. Welcome to our discussion. We're so happy to have you here. I was just explaining the difference between what we use. Well, not really explaining the difference, but kind of telling people where I think most people are confused about what yerba mate is. I think most people think of the tea. They think of the tea leaves that are actually in the bombilla that people share in South America or know it that way. And some people know yerba mate as a tea, something that you would do an infusion with. And there's a huge difference between drinking a tea or an infusion as opposed to using a whole herb extract in powder, which is what we do at Solle. And so to explain it to us a little better and tell us all the wonderful nutritive benefits of yerba mate is one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Greg Halliday, who is one of the founders of Solle Naturals. He is the president of Solle Naturals, and he is a very dear friend, someone I've known personally for almost 30 years. So Greg, welcome.
Thanks, Debbie. I'll turn my mic on. I'm looking at three of my favorite people on earth too. I just love all those years ago. I have Lon to thank for inviting me into the wonderful world of herbs. Met so many amazing people, and it's just literally changed my life. I'm just so happy to live here and be around such good people. Here being, you know, in this great Solle family right now. I have a few slides that I brought, and there's too much to talk about in the time we have. So I'm going to try to jump through it, okay? And if I motor a little bit too fast, just let me know, because the presentation, Deb, I have is a little different than the other one that I've shared, because this one we haven't translated. It's just in English, but it's one of my favorites because, it was 2013, Dr. Allison did this, and it was called Yerba Mate and Basic Plant Chemistry. So you go back to these and there's all these nuggets. So here's a little review for us, okay? And for those who may be watching the recording, she kind of sets this up by saying, look, plants are amazing. Well, we know this, right? Because we've had history using them nutritionally. And they have some components that are common to all life. So this is what she calls the primary components, these primary metabolites, right? And these are things like carbohydrates. They all have these, proteins and fats and lipids, right? And genetic material that makes them unique. There are enzymes, there are other components that help make all this work. But what we talk about when we talk about plants and when we talk about adaptogens, and today when we talk about yerba mate, we're really spending our time sorry, more primary metabolites I'm jumping over. Okay, you can see those here, right? The fiber, the genetic material, the chlorophyll. This is all part of stuff that all plants have. But when we sit and talk about the benefits, we're talking about the secondary. These vary depending on the plant. So the primary are parts in different proportions in all plants, but the secondary are what are unique, and they are differentiated by the needs of the plant, the environment it's in, right? What type of plant it is. Isn't this interesting? Over 100,000 secondary metabolites in plants are currently known, and they're being discovered all the time. When you Yerba Mate itself, when they started to study it, they found 2 or 3 new, I can't remember if they were saponins or tannins, a type of metabolite, secondary metabolite that they didn't know existed until they studied this tree, this Yerba Mate tree. So here are the 3 groups that Dr. Allison reviews for us. The largest group, and then the phenolics, like all your polyphenols, and then your alkaloids. These are the 3 main groups. You can kind of like list all these secondary metabolites in these groups. So you can kind of see what she says here. Yerba Mate contains specifics in all 3 of those that create its multiple health qualities or medicinal health qualities. It is very broad. It has a large group, I would add, in all 3 of these categories. And that's what's unique. Unfortunately, we live in a world where everybody wants to isolate the one thing and then make this really potent, whether it's a capsule, an herb capsule, or to concentrate so far as to make it a drug, but they just want to pull this one thing out. I was reading the other day, Raponticum. We talked about this on Valerie's Zoom. It's marl root, and there is a component in Raponticum that falls under one of these categories that they isolate that helps people build muscle mass. And so like bodybuilders and people like that want it. So what do they want to do? They want to extract it out of that plant. And when you take it in larger doses, you really build muscle mass, and you start to get secondary effects, because that just makes it more drug-like. Solle is all about not doing that. There are some things we will concentrate up to a degree, but never pulling them out. We'll leave them in, though we may concentrate certain elements that we want more of. So here's an example of Dr. Allison saying, Yerba Mate, a lot of people drink Yerba Mate because they feel energy. But it's not like, say, ibuprofen's a painkiller, where it kind of does that one thing and is isolated. It's different, and we're going to show that today, okay? Here's her statement. Because Yerba Mate is a whole plant, it is highly complex compared to any pharmaceutical. This complexity creates a huge range of effects. So a lot of times people want to tell us, ask us, don't they? Well, what does this do? What does that plant do? What does this product do? I don't know if you're like me. It's really hard to answer that sometimes because of this slide right here. It is. So let's learn a little bit more about Yerba Mate. They call it sometimes the liquid vegetable in Spanish. We use Ilex paraguayensis, which is the Paraguayan species of Yerba Mate. It's a tree from the holly family. Some people think it's a shrub, but it can grow, to me, when it's 50 feet tall, that's not a shrub. But anyway, it's evergreen, most abundant in Paraguay, but they're now planting them in other countries because it's very popular. Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, the southern end of South America. And yeah, they'll do this. They call these guampas. I lived in Paraguay for 2 years. So I have visited many homes. When you'd go visit a family in their home, they'd pass this around. They'd fill it up. In Paraguay, it was different. They did cold water, though. They did not drink it hot, ever. In most of the other countries, they drink it hot. And the heat has led to one of the problems and one of the, to me, most infamous articles written about mate that have got people in the US reading it because they're not familiar with it in the US, because mate went from South America to Europe. Its last stop on the trip was here. And so a couple of articles were written by people who didn't know what they didn't know the reasons why. They just knew the result. And they published them, and you got these 2 articles that people think mate causes cancer. And I bring them up because I normally don't like to, because we call that watering the weeds. Somebody planted a weed there and it just gives it more credence. But it's worth mentioning because you might hear it if someone gets on Google and they search enough. One of them had to do with this, what I'm telling you about right here. You see this form that you see here is hot. In this style of vessel that they put it in, they grind up this, it's usually the leaf and the stem. And then they dry it in some fashion. And the reason that you have different brands of this, it's not that all the trees necessarily taste all that different, it's the way they dry it is different. Some of them are using very little heat. Others are actually used with fire or smoke and burned. And so that gave birth to one of the arguments, which is that there are substances in yerba mate that can cause cancer. Absolutely false, unless you burn it like people burn anything and you create that charcoal substance, which is carcinogenic in anything that you charcoal up. I'm using the common disclaimer or common label, for just burning something. That's where it came from. It has nothing to do with the mate any more than anything else that you would charcoal up, okay? But burning, charcoaling up things is just not good for you. And it can cause that. It can lead to that is a better way of putting it in some people. So that's one of the infamous little articles that was written years ago. And they'll give it a cursory read and they're writing about a variety of plants and they'll include it in there and they really haven't thought about it and studied it. The other one is heat. People in Chile, Argentina, some of these countries, you have some people that like to boil it. Not actually a bad thing to do in some areas to boil the water. However, they're drinking it immediately, like they like it super, super hot and they scald their throat. And what science has learned, and that's just common sense because we've seen that over the years, no matter what you're drinking, coffee, tea, black tea, white tea, green tea, yerba mate is actually not a tea, but it's drunk like one sometimes. If you scald yourself, throat cancer in some people can evolve. And that's the other one. So that's where they both come from. I wanted to, straighten those out. I had used it. I had had this for years, lived with it, knew how beneficial it was. It was known as refreshing remedy down in Paraguay. That is what they called it in Spanish. Do you want some refreshing remedy? And boy, I don't even know if they knew how packed this is. The Pasteur Institute in France studied this for decades. They published 50 years ago that you could search the world over and be hard pressed to find any plant more nutritious than this one. So wow, it may exist somewhere. We don't know everything about everything, do we? But of those that we know, it surpasses many, many, many of the most sort of nutrient-packed plants that we see. There are a few others that are up there with mate that I've seen as well. Believe it or not, sea buckthorn has a similar number of active compounds. And there are some studies that say goji berry, which we have in the longevity, can be similar, but they're different. They're different secondary metabolites. There are different compounds than mate, but I'm just saying in the number of them and the variety of them. So you have just really a small group of plants that you would call sort of super status. Mate is definitely in those. And what's amazing about mate is it's an adaptogen. And a couple of those super nutritious plants are. So yerba mate, people that drink it scalding hot can cause problems, or people that burn it. But that is also why you can buy different brands of it and have it, and they all taste different. They use a different way to dry it. It's simply that some of those are very many of them are traditional and they're regional, and so that's where that comes from. We don't use any of that. We don't use any of that. We don't buy the mate prepared. We actually extract from the tree. So just to be really clear, Solle doesn't use a mate tea. There's not like a favorite brand that we buy. The reason is we want to get even more of the nutrients. And when you dry the leaves and you prepare it like a tea, and you've got it in tea bags, as you know, some things will dissipate off with oxygen. Tea bags are porous. They're not meant to seal. When you use an extract, you're not just getting whatever the hot water or even the cold water will leach from the plant. We're actually drinking the plant material. And that does make a big difference. And it's why people who may be used to drinking mate, who maybe have told you in the past, oh, I've drunk mate, I like it, they can drink cinnamate and go, why am I noticing so much more? I've seen the same reaction with Solle Vital in someone who's used to liquid chlorophyll. Liquid chlorophyll still carries a lot of benefit, but the liquid degrades it. In the powder form mixed up and you drink it within 24 hours, you're probably getting 15 or 20 times the sodium copper chlorophyllin. And that's why you notice more. And people will say, wow, this didn't happen before or that. And I'm used to drinking chlorophyll for lots of years. Same thing with mate compared to the mate tea. So hopefully that clarifies it. Just jumping through a couple of interesting facts that Allison brought up here. Look at all these things that you'll recognize that are in mate. This is not even, the list is like almost 200 plant compounds long. So we're not going to list all 200, but these are a lot of the famous ones that you'll recognize. Look at all those B vitamins. A and C and beta carotene and flavanols and inositol and 15 different amino acids. Look at all the minerals. Look at those antioxidants that are in yerba mate. It really has all, and in fact, one of the biggest debates about it was caffeine. So I'm going to show you the answer to that one too, because it's worth taking just a minute, okay? Comes from this category of alkaloids, the xanthines, right? They're stimulants, and they're good in their natural state. They'll dilate bronchioles. They'll improve breathing. They'll do lots of good things. So that's why yerba mate is such a head clearer, clear the brain fog. And among other things, cold appendages, being able to help improve blood flow, thinking, digestion. It's a really good digestive for all of these reasons, right? Well, among this group, you have three famous ones: caffeine, theobromine, and theophylline, if I'm saying it right. They actually stimulate your heart rate and digestion. They do accelerate the muscles, and they relax smooth muscle. They accelerate digestion of proteins. So yerba mate has all three. So first thing you need to know, all three of them. Very balanced, very diverse in this category. Now, they have a similar structure, but they differ in what they do. And one effect that they have in common is they share smooth muscle relaxation, which is why all these things can happen. Better digestion, better elimination, clearer thoughts. Smooth muscle, when there's inflammation, tension, it tends to bog down lots of processes, right? Now, caffeine will do that too. Any caffeine will actually relax smooth muscle, but it has other side effects that you're going to pay for later on in life. And that's the issue. That is the issue. It's actually very hard on the heart, adrenals, etc. So here's a quote from Dr. Mowry. You probably know of him. I love this quote. This is why, and Allison, it's funny. I didn't know she was going to put this in the presentation, but it's a fantastic quote. Turns out that yerba mate is not identical to caffeine. It differs from caffeine in some very rather dramatic ways. Now, I want to pause here. Why is he even thinking he has to say this? Because I will tell you what's happening. Companies are extracting caffeine out of yerba mate. And they say it's yerba mate, but it's just the caffeine component out of it. So that's a problem, because in all the balancing components in here that make it different are not there. Even so, the caffeine is still different from yerba mate. But I believe in any of these plants, taking some of their chief constituents out and just concentrating them up, you change the whole balance. So back to his quote. Some members of the scientific community still resort to calling matine a South American term for caffeine, because scientists, they saw that it was different, the caffeine in mate, and they didn't want to call it caffeine. And other scientists said, no, it has the same molecular structure. It's caffeine. And the other scientists are no, we want to call it matine. It's a unique form of caffeine. Honestly, I don't care about the label. Okay, I really don't, because we've used the evidence is in using it. Yerba mate is non-addictive. Yerba mate doesn't give you a high and a low. These are all the evidences that it's very different than even natural caffeines that you'll find in guarana and white teas and other things that will give you a bump up and then a bump down. So I actually do side with them. I like them having it a different name, but it doesn't matter to me. It's not worth the argument to me. The two substances are very, very similar chemically. However, they are different. There is a difference between the caffeine in yerba mate and caffeine in other plants. That is indisputable. So what's the difference? Well, studies have shown this now, and we have decades of work on this. Is not it's just news here in the US because we're a coffee and tea country. We're not so much, mostly a coffee country, right? And now we're like Red Bull country, energy drink country. But mate does stimulate the central nervous system, just like caffeine, but it's not addicting or habituating. I can't tell you how many people, you don't have a withdrawal. Yes, your body's going to feel a difference because you feel better with the nutrition, but that's different than a withdrawal. Second thing, caffeine will almost always worsen sleep over time for people. Mate does the opposite. It actually improves sleep. Muscle performance without depressive effects, caffeine over time, it's more roller coaster. Not so with yerba mate. People that are really sensitive to caffeine, I can't tell you how many have told me coming to Solle, oh, I'm not sure if I can do it because I've heard mate has caffeine. And we always tell them anyway, be cautious with any new herb. Just try a little bit, wait 20 minutes, see how you feel. You can try a little more, go slow. But in the back of my mind, I'm saying to myself, but you're not going to have a problem with this because I haven't met anyone who does yet. This is now a decade. Here's another interesting thing that Allison threw in. Theobromine. Remember, yerba mate has theobromine too. But what's different about it than caffeine? And it's really preferred because of these differences. Theobromine is a longer lasting. It's more of a stamina than a spike. It's a smoother effect, easier on the body. It still dilates blood vessels, relaxes smooth muscle, and it does all the good things versus caffeine, which can create hypertension or higher blood pressure problems and raise it. Theobromine will do the opposite. And theobromine, I think she's got a picture because I do believe chocolate. You'll find that in chocolate, don't you? But that's the difference. So here we are, and there's the number. I knew it was close to 200. Almost 200 chemical compounds in yerba mate. Fantastic, okay? And they've even studied it versus red wines and some of these other things because it even has better polyphenols than your wine. So it's quite amazing. Amazing is the only word that does justice to yerba mate, honestly, because every time I look at this, I'm astounded. And these are just little random studies that she quoted here. But here's a little bit of the actual data. Polyphenols, okay. So quercetin, you can read a lot about quercetin. Look at yerba mate, green tea, and black tea. You're talking 3 times the quercetin. And free radical quenching ability, okay. Yerba mate, again, so much higher. And green tea, this is something that's quite good. Green tea is quite amazing. And yet yerba mate just exceeds it significantly in all of these measures. So then Allison jumps to the mental effects. That is of utmost concern for us in Solle, always looking at that connection, right? It is proven. The caffeine in colas and coffee, and I would probably add a few other things to it. We got to add like the energy drinks now, right? They do actually impair memory. Over time, memory will be impaired. It feels sharper in the moment, but it's sacrificed over time. Impairs sleep. Anxiety, which is more and more of an issue in today's world, it's enhanced. Yerba mate actually enhances memory, does not cause anxiety, and actually can improve sleep. So it's really just the opposite, and that's the way it should be for everything in Solle. That was our commitment in actually founding the company, is only providing things which will build over time. Never something that just sacrifices the future for the now, even though you can find that even in the natural products. Yerba mate is an awesome immunity. We've talked about how great it is. It is antiviral, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory. It does have flavonoids in them that are anti-abnormal cell. So it does protect cells. And she just lists them for you there. If you're familiar with those terms, the polyphenols, the flavonoids, and the saponins, all of them in pretty good numbers in yerba mate. It's quite the amazing plant. So again, we look at whole plant function. That's what we're all about, not isolating constituents. We do cite them sometimes because we learn from it. We learn kind of what they do, but we don't really know, as much as we've learned, why they work so well together in the proportions. We're learning that. I'm not sure we'll ever learn that exactly. Here's a little bit about blood sugar. Yerba Mate, improving it over time. So insulin resistance, blood sugar levels, helping the body find a good healthy weight, that good normal weight, which is different for everybody. We all have different structure. And let me see if she's got one more here. Oh, here's a cholesterol study. So again, people always are surprised when I tell them, yeah, Cinnamate is actually a blood cleaner. What? It's a great mix when you do Cinnamate and Vital, because Vital, as you know, uses other means with the chlorophylls and several of the adaptogens in there to help improve your blood, the health of your blood. And it does, and Mate comes in and deals with lipids and sugars in a stronger way. And so does Vital, both of them, Vital and Mate, both deal with blood pressure. So what a great one to combine. That's why Donna combines these two. She always mixes them both and drinks them at the same time. That's just the way she likes to do it. I'm not sure we all knew this, but protecting the DNA, and this is research with this exact species of mate tree, anti-mutagenic. I don't always talk about that with yerba mate, but it does have anti-mutagenic properties that have been studied. So honestly, to me, it's one of those light bulb, because I was a young man. I was a 19-year-old when I first was exposed to it. We drank it all the time, 5 or 6, 7 times a day. And I actually didn't like the taste, to be honest, the way they did it, but it had no kind of stimulant. It wasn't like a stimulant at all, but you just felt good all day. Little did I know these people were giving me something that was really helping me in my health. I did not know that. And then we come back and look at what science has studied, basically confirming these traditions of many, 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 many years, and also pointing out some of the dangers, like some of their burning and drying traditions. Yeah, that could cause problems, And so we got to learn from the science there. But extracting this wonderful tree, here's a study that Dr. Allison, she chuckled. They're actually adding mate leaves to Italian sausages because 2 things: microbes won't grow on them, and they actually last longer because they're antioxidant. So there's more stuff we could say, but that's an interesting presentation. That plant chemistry yerba mate. I think you can find it in Dropbox, Debbie, if you want it. If you ever want to get that, it was a 2013 or something that Allison did.
I actually found it.
Oh, you found it already?
Yeah, I found it yesterday and I saw that it hadn't been translated. So I may, if I ever find, 3 or 5 hours of nothing to do,
good luck.
I might translate that for you. But what I love that you said, if you dig hard enough on the internet, you're always going to find something that goes against what you believe in, right? I mean, it's there. What I wanted to say with this presentation was the benefits outweigh any of the scare tactics that are still out there because of the 2 specific things. And Greg and I have talked about this before, is the charring or the roasting of those leaves. That's not what we do. And Greg, I think, expertly explained how it is that we extract and use the product. So there's no fear of that. And use common sense, right? I mean, I like my Cinnamate hot. I don't like it scalding because I sing. And if I scald my throat, I cannot sing. So if I ever fear that I made it too hot or didn't wait long enough for it to cool, guess what? I throw in 1 or 2 ice cubes and it's good to go. So I drink it, and I drink it every day. I drink it probably 2 to 3 times a day. I know I've started taking 2 Cinnamate in the morning, and then I take everything else in at least 50 ounces of water now, just because I'm trying to up my intake of fluids for health reasons and just to do my body a lot good. But Cinnamate is a product that I can tell you that I don't function without. So just because of the brain clarity that it gives me, we are busy. When you run your own business, you need something to clear your brain. And Cinnamate does that and more for me. Also, it helps me balance my blood sugar issues, which I've struggled with in the past. But mostly for mental acuity, you can't beat it. And I love its antioxidant properties, especially at this time when we talk about, people are still in a pandemic. You may have to wear a mask for longer than you thought. And if you're taking your Cinnamate, this is something that can help your immune system function better. But the purpose of this discussion today was really to put to rest all of the misconceptions that are out there, all of the misinformation that has been propagated from several articles, which really have no bearing and no standing in what we do at Solle with Yerba Mate in particular.
Deb, 2 studies I didn't mention, but you sparked it, my memory, because you mentioned immunity. Yeah, that's one of the studies. It doesn't let virus go from cell to cell. So in general, when it's been studied, now this is in the past, virus can come in, but it can't move from cell to cell. It inhibits that. There are several plants that do that. Can't remember if I mentioned on your Zoom or one of the others. On May 5th, there was an article published in the Boston Herald of a scientist, big exciting discovery. She discovered an herb that will actually kill COVID-19. And they actually went back to the SARS, the one that was 2008, 2003. It killed that one too. Do you want to know what the herb was? Wormwood.
Yeah.
Which actually is in our Omnitox. And not only do we have the leaf, and she used the leaf, we actually have the leaf and the stem. We have 2 different components. But and the only reason I bring this up, when herbs work, very often that's how they work, because she explained it didn't stop the virus from entering, but it stopped it from replicating, and so that's how it killed it. It couldn't replicate. So yes, in that family of herbs that inhibits viral spread, Yerba Mate is in there. And then the other one, when we launched it back in 2012, Debbie remembers this, or 2013, sorry, it was 2012. There was a publication that got a lot of attention in Bone magazine, women who just drank the tea, so much less the full extract that we're giving, they just showed a greater calcium density in their bones. If they drank it every day, they had more calcium in their bones. So many studies that we can, but I don't mind, those negative ones like Debbie said, you can find them. You just have to think about them and get to the bottom of them. And usually you can see where it came from. Right, exactly. So,
as I still read them because, and the reason for this topic this week was I have a sweet friend who is in our Solle organization who had someone ask her about those old articles that were going around. And she said, how do I answer that? And I said, well, this, and this, but it has more value when it comes from the home office, and people can see exactly how it is that the product is extracted and how it's used and all of the science that backs it up. And that's why I'm glad that you had that PowerPoint up, so that when she shares this recording, she'll be able to say, see, this is based on this study and this study and this study. So the information is out there. You can find good and bad on the internet, but not everything you read is the truth. So just take it with a grain of salt and learn from all of these things. I think it's really interesting. And Greg, you didn't mention this today, but you mentioned it yesterday in Spanish. There are so many more studies now that disprove what was originally circulated on the internet.
Oh, well, in fact,
2 articles in particular.
Yeah, there's so many now that the Argentine, I think I shared this yesterday, the Argentine government has now put it, first of all, it's in the pharmacopoeia for several countries, okay? So, and for all these things, several of these things that we've talked about as a wonderful remedy for them. But Argentina the government has actually issued a recommendation for all children, which is, that's what blows people's mind, because it's known to be, that's where it's been used and that's where it's been studied. So this article, these couple of articles that maybe have surfaced up here, they're long past them. And so they've seen this and they've recommended the kids. Why? Super nutritious. They just have a much better vitamin profile and much better health.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Greg. I know I've taken way too much of your time today, so really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
I know that you've been taking care of Donna.
Yes, Donna she's rehabbing her bionic knee that she got on Thursday.
Yeah.
She snuck down the stairs today. Yeah, you can tell I snuck in the office because the only reason I'm here in the office right now is because our daughter Lauren came down for a bit, and she's with her right now. But I've been cooking for her, which is all the incentive she needs to get better. Because I'm cooking. I'm not gonna lie. I cook breakfast and lunch, dinner. I go get, but
Let me tell you,
I am a good breakfast chef.
Don't let Donna sneak down the stairs anymore. I remember I sneaked down the stairs from Jerry after I had my Achilles tendon repaired, and I fell off the scooter and just about busted my tailbone as well as re-injure my Achilles.
Wait, you
Don't do
tried to
that.
go down the stairs on a scooter?
I actually was bouncing down the stairs on my bum,
Oh, okay.
got the scooter into the kitchen and flipped on the scooter.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a gold medal. And I'm the only person who can do the triple klutz. I have a gold medal for that. So, but anyway, thanks so much, Greg.
For balancing a scooter. Okay. All right.
There's not enough herbs to teach you how to balance a scooter.
Yeah, really.
Thanks so much, Greg. I really appreciate it.
See you next time.
Awesome. Thank you. Alrighty. So our little closing gem for the day is how to make your soul shine brighter. I love all of the little things that Solle provides. I love the Solle shop. I think Christy is wearing a shirt that says Solle on it today. I love wearing these things in public. I went to visit a lady that I know this week whom I'd shared product with. And she said, "Oh, look at how cute your Solle shirt is." Because people still call it Solle, but it is Solle. And she said that she liked my shirt and it reminded her to take her product. So sometimes, you know, the littlest thing that we don't really think about will be the thing that makes Solle shine bright for you. Another thing that I love is my mental health awareness pin. It does say Solle Naturals on it. Thank you to all of you who've added it to your orders and made donations to the Hope Squad. That's a great way to have Solle shine in the community, because we will be helping many adolescent children who struggle with mental health issues, especially suicidal tendencies. And so this group will really help. My last tip for how to make your soul shine a little brighter this month is remember that systems are important, right? So you know that I use a system, and in my organization, there are two systems that are used with great success. One is the 4-month program, and the other one is just to use the Solle package number 2, the primary balance with adaptable. And whatever you find that works best for you and your clients should be your system. Don't say, this is what Debbie told me to do. You try what I am showing you, and then if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, my job as your mentor is to help you find something. And so that will help you. So when you do find your system, the thing that's going to make your system really work and move is the gift card. I love the gift card because it is available to use on an enrollment order. So don't forget, you can't offer this after they've signed up. It is an incentive for someone to sign up. And so the gift card can be used towards any of those packages that you are using as part of your system to give a better discount and another incentive for someone to try Solle. So wear your Solle gear, talk about Solle. And if you haven't watched the video that I sent you a video this week that took the place of our business class on Monday. I sent you Bob Iger's talk that he gave at the commencement at my daughter's graduation this weekend. It is a fabulous talk. Another thing that will make your soul shine bright is working on self-improvement. And I love that talk. Bob Iger said, and I quote, "Be bold. In this world, you need to be bold. And if your dream fails you, dream a bigger dream and be bold about dreaming the bigger dream, because that is what will propel you. For me, Greg said the company started really early 2012. I didn't join Solle until almost the end of 2013, when I boldly retired from a job that I had, and not knowing what I was going to do, went to my best friend and said, "Do you have a job for me?" And he said, "I don't have a job for you because I can't afford to pay you what you're worth. But I promise you, if you give Solle a chance, I will help you build your business." And he did. And today I am the happiest I have ever been. And I urge you all to be bold, make the decisions that you need to make, to be bold, because we can change the world one person at a time, with Solle, with our smiles, with our happy attitudes. Life isn't easy. It wasn't meant to be easy, but it sure as heck is worth the ride. And I love you all. I'm glad to be with you every week. I look forward to seeing you next week before I embark on my trip. I'm headed to Utah for a few days to see my family. And so I hope that Donna will be recovered enough so that I can sneak into the office for 2 days and do our webinar live from the home office and show you a few of the things and introduce you to some of the beautiful people that work at Solle. So thank you so much for being here this week. I love you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thank you for sharing. Love you. Bye, guys.